Why is my wife's car parked in front of my son-in-law's house when it should be resting safely in our garage? The question erupted inside my mind, sharp and relentless. Monica's silver Lexus sat confidently in the driveway, its polished body catching the glow of the afternoon sun like a mirror of betrayal. I had washed that car myself on Saturday, proud of the shine, proud of the life I had built. Now it felt like the car itself was mocking me. I slowed my Honda and let it idle at the curb. Logic shouted excuses. Perhaps she was delivering something to Brianna. Perhaps she had simply stopped for a short visit. But it was Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon. Monica should have been across town at the design office reviewing contracts, not here. The longer I stared at that Lexus, the more every excuse unraveled. I turned off the ignition. The sudden silence screamed in my ears. A child's laughter floated faintly from the next yard. Somewhere a dog barked. Yet everything around me felt staged, unreal. My hands shook against the steering wheel as sweat gathered on my temples. Should I drive away, protect myself from the answer I already feared? Or should I step into the unknown, risk seeing the truth with my own eyes? My legs moved before I decided. Gravel crunched beneath my shoes, and each sound felt like a gunshot. I stopped, looked around, then continued carefully stepping on patches of grass where I could. The April breeze was cool, but my shirt clung to my back. I moved closer to the house, closer to the half-open window, glowing faintly with yellow light. Inside, shadows moved across the living room. I heard voices. My pulse spiked. When the old fool finally signs the papers, we'll have everything we planned for. Monica's voice drifted out soft yet venomous, each syllable a knife. I froze. 25 years of marriage reduced to a single sentence of contempt. Then Derek's deeper voice followed, crisp and calculating. The timing's perfect. File in June. Claim irreconcilable differences. Under the new statutes, she gets half of everything plus spousal support for life. I closed my eyes. He wasn't talking about a client. He was talking about me. My wife and my daughter's husband had turned my life into a legal puzzle to solve. Monica laughed. That sound had once lit up rooms, had once made me fall in love. Now it sliced through me like broken glass. Alan has no idea. 2 years of playing the devoted wife, and now it's finally paying off. My knees weakened. Until this moment, I still believed her love was real. The construction business alone is worth $12 million. Derek continued, his tone professional, detached. Add the rentals, the lake house, the investments, we're looking at nearly $20 million. My throat burned. Every 16-hour day, every back-breaking deal, every sacrifice I made for my family, they were plotting to take it all. I pulled my phone from my pocket, thumb trembling as I pressed record. The best part, Derek said, is his trusting nature. We've been documenting everything: bank statements, deeds, valuations. Months of work already done. That man still believes I love him, Monica added coldly. I bit down on my lip so hard I tasted blood. Rage and disbelief surged through me. Suddenly, a twig snapped beneath my shoe. Both voices fell silent. Did you hear that? Monica asked sharply. Probably just the neighbor's cat, Derek muttered, though unease roughened his tone. I pressed flat against the wall, heart hammering so hard I thought my chest would burst. My body screamed to run, but my mind ordered me to stay. I needed this proof. I needed every poisonous word. The silence stretched on forever. Then, like conspirators reassured, their voices resumed. I caught fragments, plans about filing dates, strategies for hiding motives, laughter dripping with cruelty. The recording captured every sound. At last, when their conversation shifted to quieter tones, I stepped back, retreating the way I had come. My legs felt like rubber. Each step threatened to collapse beneath me. Somehow I made it to the car. I collapsed into the driver's seat and gripped the wheel with both hands. These were the same hands that had built houses, signed contracts, carried my daughter when she was small. Hands that had trusted Monica with everything. Now they trembled not from weakness but from fury. Through the windshield, the Lexus gleamed under the fading light, polished and perfect, a cruel reminder of everything she had already taken. Behind those walls they laughed again, as though my world had not just shattered. But something inside me had hardened. They thought I was blind. They thought I was weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The front door creaked open, just as I tightened my grip on the car keys. My pulse quickened, every muscle bracing for impact. And there she was, Monica, stepping out, with the same elegance that once stole my breath. A designer purse swung at her side as though she were leaving a casual lunch with friends. Except this was no ordinary visit. Derek followed closely behind, his tie perfectly straight, his expression carefully neutral. His presence shadowed hers, protective, maybe even possessive. Together they froze when they spotted me parked in the driveway. Alan, Monica's voice leapt half an octave sharp with surprise. "What are you doing here?" I opened the door slowly, forcing a calm I did not feel. "Job site nearby." I lied with practiced smoothness. Thought I'd stop and see Brianna. Monica's lips pulled into something like a smile, but her eyes betrayed her panic. "She's not home. Just us." The words tumbled out too quickly. Derek stepped forward, inserting himself like a shield between us. His pale gray eyes scanned me, searching for cracks in my composure. We were reviewing some legal files, nothing unusual. I raised an eyebrow, feigning casual interest. "Legal files? What kind? Asset division?" He answered too quickly, then adjusted. "A divorce client." "Complicated case." The irony nearly made me laugh. My daughter's husband, the lawyer, openly describing the very scheme that would ruin me while looking me square in the eye. Monica's fingers twisted nervously around her purse strap. "I thought you were working late," I said lightly, tilting my head toward her. "Didn't you mention the Henderson proposal this morning?" Her face faltered for a fraction of a second. "I left early. Headache." I nodded sympathetically. "Sorry to hear that." My tone was smooth, but inside I was boiling. The air thickened with silence. The three of us stood in a fragile triangle, each pretending nothing was wrong, while every gesture betrayed the truth. I let the silence linger, then pulled my phone casually from my pocket. Their eyes flickered toward it, quick but telling. A reminder that I might already know more than they wished. "You seem tense," Alan, Monica offered at last, her voice straining for normalcy. "Everything okay?" The woman conspiring to destroy me had the audacity to ask about my well-being. I nearly laughed in her face. "Long day," I muttered. "Don't let me interrupt." Derek's hand slid naturally to Monica's lower back. The touch was subtle, almost instinctive, yet intimate. My teeth clenched. "How long had this been happening behind closed doors? We were just finishing," Derek said smoothly. "Perfect timing." Monica added a brittle laugh. "I'll be home soon. Just need to wrap things up." "Take your time," I replied, stepping back toward my car. Then, as if remembering, I turned. "Oh, Monica, Dr. Patterson's office called. Something about rescheduling your physical. A conflict with your work schedule, I believe." Her face froze for half a beat. Then, with admirable speed, she plastered on a smile. "Must be a mix-up. I'll call them." I smiled faintly, climbed into my Honda, and shut the door. My pulse thundered in my ears, but my expression remained calm as I started the engine. Through the rearview mirror, I watched them standing side by side, frozen in whispered panic. As soon as I pulled away, their heads leaned close together, urgent voices buzzing through clenched teeth. The dance had begun. They suspected I might have heard. I knew with certainty what they were planning. And yet all of us were bound in this masquerade of normalcy. Driving home, every streetlight flickered like an omen. My chest ached from the weight of betrayal. Monica's voice echoed in my head, cruel and sharp. Derek's smug tone repeated like a gavel striking. At last I turned into my own driveway. The house rose before me, beautiful and hollow. Every board, every brick had once carried meaning. I had built this place as a gift, a sanctuary for Monica and Brianna. Tonight it felt like a museum of illusions. Inside, silence greeted me. Not the warmth of family, not the comfort of home, just hollow air pressing against my ears. I walked past the mantel. Photographs lined the shelf, Monica in her ivory wedding gown, me in an awkward tux, Brianna as a red-faced newborn. Images of love now poisoned with doubt. I lowered myself into the leather recliner. My hands, the same hands that had lifted beams, signed contracts, held my wife close, trembled against my face. How many lies had I swallowed across the years? How many times had her smile masked betrayal? Grief threatened to drown me, but it didn't last. A colder, sharper clarity replaced it. Monica believed she was playing chess against a man blind to the board. But I had built an empire from nothing, piece by piece. Strategy was my second nature. The game had shifted, and I would not play the fool any longer. I parked in the circular driveway, the same one Monica had insisted we build years ago to impress her friends. The headlights swept across the fountain she commissioned for our 20th anniversary. Once it symbolized devotion. Tonight, it felt like an insult. Inside, silence welcomed me. Not the peaceful kind, but heavy, hollow, suffocating. I stood in the foyer, staring at the staircase, remembering all the times Brianna had bounded down those steps on Christmas morning. My chest tightened. The wedding photo caught my eye from the mantel. December 1987. Monica radiant in ivory silk, me awkward in a rented tuxedo, both of us glowing with what I had believed was genuine happiness. She had been 22, working as a secretary downtown. I was 37, finally turning a profit after years of sacrifice. We met at a Christmas party, shared a laugh over a bad concrete joke, and within 6 months, I had asked her to marry me. I remembered our first date, her eyes sparkling when I spoke about building homes that would last. "You're not just building houses," she had said, reaching across the table. "You're building families." That moment convinced me she was different, someone who saw me. I moved to the kitchen. On the table sat the anniversary card from last December, her handwriting neat in blue ink. "To my wonderful husband, thank you for making my dreams come true. Here's to 25 more years of happiness. All my love, Monica." I read the words again and again. They rang hollow now, cruel in their irony. In the living room shelves I had built during her pregnancy, held Brianna's baby pictures. June 1995. Monica tired but glowing, holding our newborn as though she had been born to motherhood. For years she seemed so devoted, school events, birthday parties, holiday traditions. I believed every smile, every tear, every whispered, "You're the best father in the world." I dropped into the recliner. She hated the one she claimed ruined the look of the formal room. It had always been mine, a place to rest after long days. Tonight it felt like the only honest chair in the house. Memories swirled like smoke. Our Alaska cruise for our 10th anniversary, Brianna's high school graduation, Christmas mornings, with too many gifts. When had gratitude become entitlement? When had pride in what we built turned into demands for more? The answer surfaced quickly, 2020. The year Johnson Construction won the Municipal Center contract, the biggest in our history. I had come home ready to celebrate. Instead, Monica sat at the kitchen table with real estate magazines and a calculator. "Now we can finally buy the Elm Street house," she had said, without a word of congratulations. I had brushed it off then. Now I understood it was never about the work, never about me, only about what she could gain. I opened my phone and replayed the recording, Derek's voice crisp. "We've been documenting his assets for months." Monica's laughter followed, 2 years of playing the devoted wife. My stomach turned, but my hands grew steadier. The pain was still there, but it had shifted into something colder. She believed she was clever, manipulating me for decades. He believed he could outthink me in my own house, using my own family against me. But I hadn't built an empire by being blind. Strategy had always been my strength. I saw patterns, I anticipated moves, and I planned ahead. I rose and walked into my office. Rows of files lined the shelves, contracts, deeds, tax records. Every piece of my life's work was there. But the real assets were not on those shelves. Years ago, on Marcus Webb's advice, I had secured offshore accounts, legal documented invisible without expert eyes. Monica and Derek thought they held the keys to my kingdom. They hadn't even found the doors. I sat at my desk, phone in hand, scrolling to Marcus's number. My thumb hovered for a second, then pressed. The line clicked. Marcus Webb. It's Alan, I said, my voice steady now. We need to talk, urgent. For the first time since spotting that Lexus in the driveway, my heart felt controlled. The fear, the disbelief, the grief, all of it had sharpened into a single point. Not weakness, not confusion. Strategy. My office became a war room overnight. 2 laptops glowed on the desk I had built 15 years earlier, their screens filled with spreadsheets, banking portals, and scanned documents. Yellow legal pads covered every inch of mahogany columns labeled assets, liabilities, weaknesses, leverage points. Marcus Webb had come through quickly, as always. Alan, he said over the phone, your instincts were right. Some unusual transfers, all linked to accounts you never authorized. I scrolled through the data he sent, my pulse steady, now sharpened by focus. Monica had funneled $47,000 over the past 8 months into a savings account, bearing both her name and Derek's. Every transaction disguised as household expenses, luxury lunches at Riverside Country Club, designer clothing, spa treatments, and always deposits timed with withdrawals from our joint accounts. The betrayal cut deeper with each line item. She had bought a Hermes handbag for $3,000 the same week she complained about the cost of groceries. And Derek's signature appeared on several of the transfers. My stomach clenched, but my mind stored the details like ammunition. Marcus's voice came again, calm and precise. They've built a paper trail that looks ordinary, but once you align dates and amounts, the pattern is obvious. Good, I answered. Document everything. Copies, timestamps, certified if possible. While Monica believed she was cataloging my fortune, she had missed the real treasure. Marcus reminded me of the 3 offshore accounts, legal and protected, that no amateur sleuth would ever find. They thought they had cornered the board. In truth, they were playing on half of it. But Derek's vulnerabilities were even more revealing. A quick round of calls confirmed what I suspected: he was drowning in debt. One contractor said Derek owed nearly $10,000 for office renovations. Another whispered about student loans approaching $200,000. Jim Morrison, an old contact in the concrete business, leaned across a cafe table when I asked about Derek. Sharp lawyer, sure, but champagne taste on a beer budget. He owes half the subcontractors in town. Promises to pay, then vanishes. Alan, he's not just reckless. He's desperate. Desperation made men dangerous, but it also made them sloppy. That evening, I spread Monica's credit card statements across my desk. The picture was clear: the so-called book club meetings lined up perfectly with spa bills, hotel charges, and Derek's office expenses. They weren't hiding an affair. They were funding it together. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. My wife and son-in-law had underestimated me so completely, they believed moving a few $1,000s at a time would go unnoticed. They had no idea that I noticed everything. My phone buzzed with a message from Brianna. Dad, is everything okay with Mom? She seems stressed, and Derek keeps asking about your company structure. I stared at the words, my heart heavy. She had no clue that her mother and husband were building a trap around her. She thought she was asking about tension in the marriage. She had no idea she was standing in the crossfire. I typed back carefully. Everything's fine. Just business pressure. But my mind was racing. Derek was probing her for information, using her psychology background as a cover. The conspiracy was wider than I realized. I replayed the recording once more. Derek's confident tone. We've been documenting his assets for months. Monica's laugh, 2 years of playing the devoted wife. Every word matched the evidence I was gathering. The net was tightening, but not around me. Around them. I called Marcus again. How quickly can you prepare a comprehensive report? 2 days, he answered. I'll cross-reference the transfers, highlight unauthorized activity, and build a timeline. Do you want me to notify the bank? Not yet, I said. Freeze nothing until I say. I want them to believe they still control the game. As the hours passed, I wrote notes on the yellow pads, Derek's debts, Monica's spending patterns, timelines, weaknesses. Each page sharpened my strategy. I had faced city inspectors, union leaders, and investors with billions at stake. This was no different, except the enemy shared my last name. When midnight struck, I stood at the window looking out over the garden Monica once insisted we hire landscapers to maintain. She wanted status appearances perfection. She had traded love for calculation, trust for greed. And now she had chosen an accomplice too unstable to cover his own tracks. I felt no despair, only clarity. They believed they were 2 steps ahead. But I had lived my life building foundations, anticipating storms. I knew how to reinforce walls before they crumbled. The next move would be mine. By late morning, the plan was in motion. At First National Bank, Tom Bradley slid the security forms across the polished oak table. Alan, these orders will freeze every joint account temporarily. Identity verification will be required for access. Are you sure you want to do this? I signed my name with a steady hand. I'm sure. The pen stroke felt heavier than any contract I had ever signed. For decades, I had provided freely. Today, I reclaimed control. By noon, the system responded. Every shared account was flagged, every automatic payment suspended. The bank would send polite notices, but the effect was immediate. Monica's plastic lifeline to luxury had been severed. I didn't have to wait long. At 12:03 p.m., my phone buzzed with the first alert, declined transaction at Riverside Country Club. A round of martinis, lunch for 4, rejected in front of her friends. At 12:50 she called. I answered calmly, leaning against my truck at the construction site, hard hat tucked under my arm. Alan, she blurted, voice high with panic. Something's wrong with our accounts. My card was declined at lunch. The bank says there's a hold. Do you know anything about this? I allowed a pause, let her twist. A hold. That sounds serious. Did they explain? They said something about identity verification. I was humiliated. Linda and Susan were sitting right there. Alan, I couldn't even pay the check. Her distress was genuine, but not for the reason she claimed. She cared less about finances and more about appearances. Being embarrassed in front of her circle was a deeper wound than any balance sheet. I'll call Tom, I said smoothly. We'll get it sorted. Of course I didn't call Tom. I let the silence spread, savoring the unraveling of her composure. By mid-afternoon, the messages multiplied. 1:47 p.m. Still can't access accounts. This is ridiculous. 2:23 p.m. Tom's secretary says he's in meetings. Why is he avoiding me? 3:15 p.m. Even our emergency line is frozen. How am I supposed to buy groceries? I read each one slowly, a grim satisfaction coursing through me. For 25 years, she had taken security for granted. Now she tasted uncertainty. But it wasn't only Monica who felt the sting. At 4:30 p.m., Mike Rodriguez, my private investigator, called. Derek tried to access the joint account 3 times today. When that failed, he went after a trust account in Brianna's name. That one's locked too. His reaction, I asked. Angry, threatening bank staff, demanding supervisors. Classic arrogance. Perfect. Their confidence was cracking. I returned home before sunset, the house glowing in gold light. Monica was already there, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. Her phone lay on the counter screen, lit with unanswered texts. "Alan," she snapped the moment I entered. "Did you do this? Did you tell the bank to freeze everything?" I set my briefcase down slowly. "Security measures, that's all." Tom said, "Accounts needed review. Standard procedure." Her face flushed. "Standard procedure doesn't leave me stranded at a restaurant." I couldn't even buy gas. I studied her, the panic under the anger. She wasn't worried about food or bills. She was terrified her perfect image was slipping. "I'll follow up tomorrow," I said, voice calm. Don't worry." Her laugh was brittle. "I was humiliated, Alan. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" I met her eyes. "I think I do." The silence that followed cut deeper than shouting. She turned away, muttering about calling Derek. My jaw tightened, but I said nothing. Let her run to him. Let them scramble. Every move they made now tightened the trap. Later from my office, I watched through the upstairs window as Monica stepped outside, phone pressed to her ear. She paced in the driveway, her voice sharp even through the glass. Her words drifted just enough for me to catch the tone: anger, fear, desperation. I sat back in my chair, hands folded, and felt the calm that comes when the tide begins to turn. For months, maybe years, they had rehearsed their scheme. Today, for the first time, they felt what it was like to lose control. And tomorrow, they would feel it again. Saturday morning, sunlight spilled across the cafe table where Brianna usually met her mother for brunch. Caf Luna had been their spot for 5 years, a corner booth where they shared omelets, coffee, and easy conversation. Today felt different the moment Monica slid into the seat opposite her. Her mother's face was carefully composed, but Brianna noticed the tightness in her jaw, the restless way her manicured fingers tapped against the menu. Something was wrong. Monica began, her voice soft, too soft. "I need to talk to you about your father." Brianna set her coffee down, her professional instincts sharpening. "What about him?" Monica exhaled shakily, pressing her hand to her temple. "I think something is wrong with him, mentally. He's been acting paranoid, controlling. Yesterday he cut me off from every account. I couldn't even buy lunch." Her eyes glistened with carefully placed tears. Brianna listened, but not as a daughter, at least not entirely. She listened as a psychologist. Her training told her to separate emotion from fact, to observe not only words, but delivery. "How long has this been going on?" she asked evenly. "Months. Maybe longer." Monica's voice trembled. "I thought it was just work stress, but it's gotten worse. He monitors my spending, questions everything I do. Now he's frozen our accounts completely. Brianna, that isn't normal. It's abuse." Brianna folded her hands together, steady. "Did he tell you why? He claims it's routine security. But after 25 years of marriage, suddenly, he doesn't trust me." "That's not routine, sweetheart. That's punishment." Her mother's words were convincing on the surface, but Brianna caught the inconsistencies. Monica had always bragged about Alan's generosity, how he never refused her requests, how he let her run the household freely. This sudden picture of a tyrant didn't fit. She leaned forward, her therapist's voice calm. "Are you saying Dad is trying to control you? Or are you considering divorce and he's protecting assets?" Monica blinked rapidly. The question cut too close. She shifted, changed tactics. "I'm saying your father has changed. I don't know what triggered it. I'm worried, Brianna. You've studied psychology. You can see the signs, can't you?" Brianna's stomach tightened. The plea was subtle but clear. Monica wanted her professional validation, not her comfort as a daughter. She spoke carefully. "Major behavioral changes usually have triggers. Did something happen 3 days ago?" Monica hesitated. Her eyes flickered downward. "I don't know. That's what scares me." But Brianna could read the micro-expressions, the hesitation, the darting gaze, the false tremor in her voice. They screamed manipulation. "Mom," she said gently, "are you asking for psychological advice, or are you asking me to take your side against Dad?" The question shattered Monica's performance. She forced a smile, then waved her hand as if brushing away tension. "I just need help understanding. That's all." Brianna sipped her coffee, hiding the conflict raging inside her. She loved her mother. She loved her father. But the story didn't add up. She remembered Derek too, how often he asked questions about Alan's business, questions too specific to be casual curiosity. 2 nights earlier, Derek had asked her at dinner, "So how does your dad structure his partnerships? Does he hold everything personally or through trusts?" He had said it lightly, but his eyes were sharp. She had laughed it off then, but now unease returned. The brunch ended awkwardly. Monica left quickly, muttering about errands, her face flushed with frustration. Brianna watched her mother's back retreat, a knot forming in her chest. Later that afternoon, Brianna sat in her own living room, Derek across from her with papers spread on the coffee table. He was sipping whiskey, pretending to review depositions. She studied him carefully, the way she would a client. His movements were restless, his smile too tight. "Long day?" she asked. "Always," he replied smoothly. Then, almost too casually, "Your dad must be under pressure too. Has he talked about moving money around, restructuring things?" Her heart sank. "Why do you ask? Just curiosity." His eyes flickered toward her, gauging her response. "I like to understand how different businesses operate." Brianna nodded slowly, but her instincts screamed. This was no harmless curiosity. This was fishing. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, replaying conversations, weighing details, her mother's sudden plea for help, Derek's repeated questions, the tension in her father's voice on the phone earlier in the week when she had asked if everything was fine. Just business pressure, he had said. But she had heard something heavier beneath it. By Sunday morning, she knew she needed answers. She drove to her father's office at Johnson Construction, heart pounding. Sarah, his longtime secretary, greeted her warmly. "He's expecting you, honey. Go right in." Alan stood when she entered. His eyes studied her carefully, reading her the way he read blueprints. "Dad, we need to talk," she said firmly. "I've spent 2 days analyzing the situation, and I need your perspective. Mom says you're controlling, paranoid. She wants me to believe you're abusive. Derek keeps asking about company assets. None of this makes sense." Alan gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down, sweetheart." She did. For a moment they sat in silence, the weight of the unspoken pressing between them. Finally she whispered, "Tell me the truth." Alan reached for his phone, his face carved with resolve. "You need to hear something first." He pressed play. Her mother's voice filled the office. "When the old fool finally signs the papers, we'll have everything we planned for." Brianna flinched. Her hands clenched in her lap. Derek's voice followed. "The construction business alone is worth $12 million. Add the rentals, the lake house, the investments, nearly $20 million. Her breathing quickened. She fought to hold her composure as the voices continued, each word slicing deeper. When the recording ended, silence stretched. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "How long have you known?" she asked at last. "Since Tuesday," Alan replied softly. "I've been gathering evidence." Brianna straightened, her face pale but resolute. "Mom tried to use me. She wanted me to label you as abusive to give her credibility. And Derek, my husband, was part of it all." Her voice trembled, then hardened. "That marriage is over." Alan's chest ached with both pride and sorrow. He reached across the desk, but Brianna pulled back slightly, standing on her own strength. "I'll testify honestly if I have to," she said, voice steady now. "But I won't be anyone's weapon. Not hers, not his, not even yours." Alan nodded, his eyes misting. "That's all I could ever ask." Brianna turned toward the door, her stride firm, her shoulders squared. The decision had been made. She had chosen truth over loyalty, and she would never look back. The letter I sent to Monica was carefully worded. No threats, no accusations, only an invitation. Let's meet with a professional mediator and resolve our issues privately. I knew she would see it as weakness. That was the point. She arrived at the downtown office in a crimson blazer, her hair perfectly styled, lips tight with determination. Derek followed half a step behind, briefcase in hand, projecting authority. Sharon, the mediator, greeted us warmly, her gray hair tied back, her eyes patient and calm. Thank you for coming, Sharon said. The goal here is understanding, not conflict. We'll start by letting each of you speak. I sat quietly, hands folded, my face unreadable. Monica crossed her arms. I'm not doing this, she declared before Sharon could continue. Her voice rang sharp through the room. This marriage doesn't need mediation. It needs intervention. My husband has become paranoid and controlling. He froze my accounts, he watches my every move. This isn't negotiation. This is abuse. Sharon frowned, trying to soften the air. Perhaps we can still... No, Monica cut in, shaking her head. This is pointless. He won't change. I won't sit here and be manipulated. Derek leaned forward, his tone slick and rehearsed. Alan, my client, has rights. She will not be coerced into giving them up. Mediation is unnecessary. We decline. The entire meeting ended in 15 minutes. Sharon looked unsettled but professional. I shook her hand and thanked her for her time, calm as ever. Monica and Derek stormed out, whispering furiously. They thought they had won. They hadn't realized the trap had already sprung. 2 days later, a message appeared on my phone. The sender ID showed Monica's number. Alan, if you don't give me access to the accounts, I'll tell everyone you threatened me. I'll go to the police and claim abuse. I stared at it, my jaw tightening. It was bait. If I replied, they would twist my words into evidence. But I didn't take bait. I forwarded the text to Marcus, who contacted a forensic specialist. Within hours, the truth surfaced. The message originated from a prepaid phone registered under Derek's name, routed through a spoofing app. The clumsy setup made it appear as though Monica had sent it. Amateur trickery, but dangerous in less cautious hands. I printed the report, notarized and sealed it, then placed it into my growing file. Another piece of ammunition. Meanwhile, Monica polished her act in public. At the Riverside Country Club, she leaned across linen-draped tables, whispering to friends that Alan had grown unstable, that she feared for her safety. At church, she clasped hands during prayer circles, her voice breaking as she requested strength for a difficult season. Whispers traveled fast, and she reveled in the sympathy. I let her play the role. Let her think she was shaping the narrative. The higher she built her stage, the harder she would fall. Derek grew bolder too. He called Brianna late at night, pressing for details about the company. Your dad must be moving money around, he said smoothly. Has he ever told you about offshore accounts, trusts? Anything like that? Brianna deflected, offering nothing. Her loyalty was no longer his. Still, the desperation in his voice reached her ears and mine when she forwarded the calls. Thursday evening, Mike Rodriguez, my investigator, walked into my office with photos. Derek leaving a downtown bar, slipping a cheap cell phone into a stranger's hand before peeling bills from his wallet. Burner phones, Mike said. He's using them for those fake messages. But he's sloppy. Same bar, same Wi-Fi, same pattern. He thinks he's clever. He's not. I studied the photos, satisfaction warming me. Each mistake was another stone in the wall closing around them. Friday night, Monica cornered me in the kitchen. Her eyes were sharp, her voice quivering with practiced outrage. Alan, I can't live like this. I can't buy gas, I can't pay bills, I can't even get groceries. You've trapped me. If you don't fix this, I'll have no choice but to call the police. I leaned against the counter, utterly calm. If you feel unsafe, Monica, do what you think is best. I won't stop you. Her eyes flickered. That wasn't the response she expected. She wanted anger, shouting threats, anything to prove her story. Instead, I gave her nothing. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Minutes later, I watched from the upstairs window as she stood in the driveway, phone pressed to her ear, pacing furiously. Her voice carried faintly through the glass, sharp and frantic. No audience of friends, no sympathetic mediator, just a desperate woman realizing control was slipping through her hands. I returned to my office, slipped the forensic report into the folder beside Marcus's financial documents and Mike's photographs. Each page told a story. Together, they formed a weapon sharper than any accusation. They thought they were hunters. But every step brought them deeper into the cage I had built. And when the door closed, there would be no escape. 3 days remained before the court hearing. The air around me felt heavier, as if the city itself was waiting for a verdict. Each day carried a different strike, another step in the unraveling of their scheme. Day 1. At 9:00 a.m., Derek's office doors swung open to a man in a navy suit carrying a leather case. The process server walked calmly to the reception desk, asked for Derek by name, and handed over a sealed envelope stamped with the insignia of the state bar. Inside were allegations that had been simmering for months: misappropriation of client funds, delayed settlements, dishonesty in billing. Now they had crystallized into a summons. Derek was ordered to appear at a disciplinary hearing. Employees whispered as he tore the envelope open. His face drained of color. Within seconds, he was shouting, his voice ricocheting off the walls. "Who filed this? Who dared?" "This is garbage." Papers flew from his hands, scattering across the floor. A young associate bent to collect them, only to be waved away with a curse. Mike, my investigator, texted me shortly after. "He's rattled. Staff looks terrified. He slammed his office door and hasn't come out." That evening, I drove past his building. Through tinted glass, I glimpsed Derek pacing like a caged wolf, phone pressed to his ear, his gestures frantic. The man who once exuded courtroom confidence now looked hunted. Meanwhile, Monica called me twice that night. Her voice shook. "Alan, the bank is still frozen. I couldn't pay the utility bill." "Do you know what people are saying?" "Linda asked me at lunch if we were in financial trouble." I'm mortified. I kept my voice calm. "The truth has a way of surfacing, Monica. Perhaps you should let it." She hung up without answering. Day 2. Marcus arrived at my office carrying a manila folder. He placed it on my desk with deliberate care. "It's done," he said. I opened it and scanned the report. Every second of the recording from outside Brianna's house had been analyzed and authenticated. Waveforms, digital signatures, background noise patterns all confirmed its integrity. "This is airtight," Marcus explained. "Any judge will admit it. They can't claim fabrication. Their voices, their words exactly as recorded." I let my hand rest on the paper, feeling the weight of it. This wasn't just evidence. It was truth captured in their own arrogance. That afternoon, Monica made her next move. She walked into my office unannounced, her perfume preceding her. She wore a pale dress, eyes shimmering with rehearsed vulnerability. "Alan," she whispered, "please, can we end this quietly? We don't need court. We don't need lawyers. Just you and me. Talk to me like we used to." I studied her face, the practiced tremble of her lips, the way her hand hovered near her chest. I almost admired her performance. "Almost. Sit if you want," I said evenly. "But understand something. I already know. The transfers, the plans, the partnership with Derek. It's all here." I tapped the folder. Her eyes flickered, the mask slipping for a heartbeat before she forced it back. "You're delusional. I've done nothing wrong." "Tell yourself that," I replied. She spun on her heel and stormed out, the click of her stilettos echoing like gunshots down the hall. Later that evening, Monica attended her book club, where she leaned dramatically across the table, whispering about her paranoid husband. A friend of mine was there. "The report reached me by nightfall. She's working to build a story. but no one seems convinced. Day 3. The third day dawned gray and cold. Brianna appeared at my door with a suitcase in her hand, her shoulders squared but her eyes rimmed red. "I left him," she said simply. I opened the door wider, heart pounding. "Brianna," she raised a hand. "No sympathy, just honesty. I want the truth." I led her into the living room where the evidence lay in neat stacks across the coffee table. She sat flipping through documents with trembling fingers. Bank statements, debt reports, the forensic analysis of the fake text, the transcript of the recording. With each page, her face paled. When she reached the transcript, her lips pressed tight, her chest rising and falling rapidly. When she finished, she set the papers down. Her voice cracked but steadied. "They used me. Both of them. Mom wanted me to diagnose you as paranoid. Derek wanted me to hide him details about your business. They thought I was a pawn." "You are not a pawn," I said softly. She looked at me, eyes blazing now. "If you need me in court, I'll testify. I'll tell the truth. I won't protect either of them." Pride and sorrow twisted inside me. I had prayed she wouldn't have to choose, but she had chosen, and she chose integrity. That night, as the clock neared midnight, I sat in my office alone. The evidence folders lay stacked in front of me like a fortress. Each page was a wall, each recording a weapon, each photograph a shield. Yet beyond the documents, what gave me strength was Brianna's courage. She had walked away from greed, from manipulation, from a marriage poisoned by betrayal. She chose truth even when it cost her everything. The courthouse loomed ahead, its doors ready to open. The stage was set. Tomorrow the masks would fall. They had written their script of deception. Now I would deliver the final act. The courthouse smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper. Light filtered through high windows, casting sharp beams across the rows of benches. By 9 a.m., the gallery was packed. Neighbors, business associates, even reporters eager for scandal. I walked in with Marcus at my side, calm but alert. The whispers swirled around me like smoke. Some eyes held sympathy, others suspicion. But I kept my gaze fixed on the front of the room, on the bench, where Judge Franklin sat adjusting his glasses, his gavel resting within easy reach. Monica entered moments later, her red suit tailored to perfection, her hair shining under the fluorescent lights. She clutched Derek's arm like a lifeline. He carried his briefcase with theatrical confidence, greeting colleagues with forced smiles. Together, they radiated defiance. The bailiff called the session to order. Johnson versus Johnson. Petition for spousal support and allegations of financial abuse. Derek stood buttoning his jacket. "Your Honor, my client has been subjected to years of financial control. Her husband, Alan Johnson, has withheld access to marital funds, humiliated her publicly, and created a hostile environment. Today, we seek relief, half of marital assets, spousal support, and recognition of her suffering." Monica lowered her eyes, playing the role of wounded wife. A few sympathetic murmurs drifted from the benches. When it was my turn, I rose slowly. "Your Honor, the truth will show not abuse but betrayal. My wife and son-in-law conspired to strip me of everything I built. I have evidence, documents, forensic reports, and a recording that speaks for itself." Judge Franklin raised an eyebrow. "We'll examine all evidence. Proceed." The performance began. Derek called Monica to the stand. She walked with measured steps, settling into the chair, as though entering a stage she had rehearsed for months. "Mrs. Johnson," Derek began, voice dripping with sympathy. "Can you describe your experience in this marriage?" She sighed, eyes shimmering. "For years, Alan controlled every penny. I wasn't allowed to buy groceries without approval. He froze accounts, embarrassed me in public. I lived in constant fear of his temper." Gasps rippled through the audience. Derek nodded gravely. "Did you ever feel unsafe?" "Yes," she whispered. every day. I clenched my fists under the table, rage clawing at me. But Marcus touched my arm, a silent reminder, patience. Derek continued. Do you have any evidence of this abuse? Monica produced printed statements highlighting frozen accounts, rejected charges. On the surface, they painted a picture of control. The judge studied them. These appear authentic. Mr. Johnson. I stood. The context matters, Your Honor. Those freezes occurred after I discovered fraudulent transfers. Funds moved into accounts jointly held by my wife and opposing counsel. Murmurs swelled. Derek's jaw tightened, but he pressed on. Objection, he barked. Irrelevant. These were household expenses. Overruled, Judge Franklin said calmly. Continue. Now it was my turn. I called Marcus. He presented spreadsheets cross-referencing Monica's transfers with Derek's debts. Thousands shifted to cover credit cards, office renovations, even bar tabs. The pattern was undeniable. Then came the text message. Marcus explained how the forensic team traced its origin to a prepaid phone under Derek's name. A hush fell across the courtroom as the evidence was displayed on the screen, Derek's signature glaring back like a scarlet letter. Finally, I held up a small recorder. Your Honor, this is the most important piece. The judge nodded. Play it. The room went silent. Monica's voice filled the speakers. When the old fool finally signs the papers, we'll have everything we planned for. Gasps erupted. Derek's voice followed. The construction business alone is worth $12 million. Add the rentals, the lake house, the investments, nearly $20 million. The gallery buzzed. The judge raised his gavel for order. Monica's face drained of color. She gripped the edge of her chair, eyes darting wildly. Derek's mask cracked, sweat beading his forehead. Then Brianna rose from the gallery. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge hesitated. State your name. Brianna Johnson, daughter of the petitioner and respondent. He nodded. Proceed briefly. She stepped forward, voice steady, though her hands shook. I've listened to both sides. My mother asked me to claim my father was abusive. My husband pressured me for confidential details about my father's business. I now know they were working together. I cannot stay silent. My father is not abusive. He is the victim. The courtroom erupted in whispers, flashes from reporters' cameras filling the air. Monica shot up, pointing a trembling finger. Lies. She's brainwashed. Alan forced her. Order, the judge thundered. Derek scrambled papers, shaking in his hands. Your Honor, this is a family dispute twisted by emotion. That recording could be silence. Judge Franklin cut him off. He leaned forward, eyes cold. The recording is authenticated. The financial documents are verified. The text message has been traced. Counsel, this court does not tolerate fabrication. Monica collapsed back into her chair, shoulders shaking. Derek pressed his palms to his temples, muttering under his breath. The judge's voice was firm. This petition is denied. Furthermore, I am referring matters concerning potential fraud and professional misconduct to the district attorney and the Bar Association. The gavel struck. The sound echoed like thunder. It was over. The gallery erupted, some in outrage, some in applause. Reporters scrambled, shouting questions. I stood still, breathing deeply, feeling the weight of months of betrayal finally lift. Brianna moved to my side, her hand brushing mine. She whispered, "It's finished." I nodded, eyes never leaving Monica and Derek. She sat, broken mascara streaking her cheeks. He slumped, his career collapsing around him. They had written a script of greed and deception. Today in this courtroom, their play ended not with triumph, but with ruin. The echoes of the gavel still lingered in my chest long after the courtroom emptied. The weight that had bent my shoulders for months seemed lighter. Yet the silence that followed was strange and heavy, as if I had stepped into a world washed clean by a storm. When I returned home that evening, the house no longer felt suffocating. The same walls, the same furniture, but the spirit was different. Gone were the shadows of deception, the staged laughter at dinner parties, the endless rehearsals of appearances. I lowered myself into my old recliner with a cup of coffee. Monica had always hated that chair, but tonight it embraced me like an old friend. Brianna arrived soon after, her suitcase in her hand, her eyes tired but steady. She curled into the couch and gazed at the photograph above the mantel. In the picture, her childhood smile beamed from Monica's embrace. After a long silence, she whispered, "Do you think she ever loved us, or was it always just a plan?" I stared at Monica's frozen smile, remembering the years that now felt like illusions. "I think she loved us in moments," I said softly. "But love poisoned by greed is never whole. It was both real and false at the same time. That's what makes it cut so deep." Brianna wiped at her eyes and said, almost as if reminding herself, I filed the separation papers. "Derek won't be part of my life again." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "You are stronger than either of them ever believed." The days that followed passed like chapters closing. Marcus finished securing every asset. Mike delivered his reports to the prosecutors. The district attorney filed charges against Derek for fraud, misconduct, and obstruction. The Bar Association suspended his license, and his office, once buzzing with junior associates, was deserted within days. Former clients demanded their files, creditors swarmed, and the man who once strutted through courtrooms now sat in silence, his arrogance replaced by panic. Monica's fall was quieter, but no less sharp. She tried to call friends, to host gatherings, to spin stories of victimhood, but her phone stopped ringing. The country club revoked her membership. Neighbors whispered as she passed, their voices edged with pity rather than envy. For weeks she drifted through the mansion, like a ghost wandering the empty halls, until foreclosure notices stacked high. One morning she loaded her expensive bags into a borrowed car and disappeared, leaving no goodbyes, no explanations, just the emptiness she had created. While they unraveled, Brianna began to rebuild. She rented a modest apartment near her practice. She painted the walls soft blue and filled shelves with books and photographs that carried no shadows. She invited me to help hang curtains, laughing so hard when I fumbled with the rods that she had to wipe tears of joy from her eyes. That laughter was unforced, cleansing, a sound I had not heard in years. On Sundays, she cooked simple meals and we sat together at her small table. She spoke of patience, struggling with betrayal, and I listened, humbled by her resilience. She had walked through fire and emerged stronger, not broken. One afternoon, she asked me to speak to her therapy group. I stood before strangers carrying invisible wounds and told them about building. I spoke of storms that come without warning, of foundations that hold or fail, of the difference between walls built on sand and those anchored in rock. I told them relationships were no different. Lies collapse. Truth endures. When I finished, the room was silent, and in Brianna's eyes I saw pride that needed no words. The world around me shifted too. For months, whispers had clung to my name, questions about my sanity, suspicions about control. Now the truth was out. Men who once avoided me shook my hand firmly. Workers on job sites greeted me with warmth and respect. Old friends at church clasped my arm, their voices full of encouragement. The pastor spoke of faith tested by fire, and I bowed my head beside Brianna, both of us steadied by survival. Seasons turned and winter melted into spring. One bright morning I stood at the edge of a new construction site. The ground stretched bare and waiting. My crew gathered around me with hard hats gleaming. I breathed in the scent of fresh lumber and damp soil. Once building had meant profit and contracts. Now it meant legacy, proof that even after collapse, foundations could be rebuilt. I thought of Monica clutching appearances until they rotted in her hands. I thought of Derek blind with greed until the law stripped him bare. I thought of Brianna, who chose truth though it shattered her world. And I thought of myself, not ruined, but remade. The storm had passed, and what remained was stronger than before. New beginnings unfolded like green shoots from the soil. Brianna thrived in her practice, her empathy drawing clients in need of hope. She spoke at seminars about resilience, using her own scars as proof of survival. Sometimes she asked me to join to tell the part of the story, only I could tell the part about building lives on truth about loss and about rebuilding stronger. I became a mentor again, not only about concrete and beams, but about integrity. Younger workers asked how to balance ambition with family. I told them, lay every brick on truth. If you build on lies, the walls will not stand. News of Monica reached me occasionally. She drifted from one city to another, pawning jewelry, chasing friends who no longer answered her calls. She rented apartments under false names, fleeing as debts caught up. She became a ghost, wandering the ruins of her own choices. Derek's fall was harsher. Indicted and disgraced, he faced trial again for fraud. Newspapers plastered his face under headlines that once praised him, promising attorney faces prison. His arrogance turned to desperation. Former allies ignored his calls. Judges refused his pleas. His photo showed a man, unshaven eyes, hollow posture, collapsed. I felt no victory, only the hollow pity reserved for those who build on sand. Healing, though slow, came at last. One evening, Brianna placed a framed photo in my hands, her as a little girl on my shoulders, both of us laughing under a wide summer sky. This, she said, is the memory I want to carry forward. Not the lies, not the betrayals. Just this. Tears burned in my eyes, but I let them fall. For all the ruin, something true had survived, family, not counterfeit, but real. Months later, I stood on a finished job site as sunlight poured through fresh windows. A young family stepped inside, their children racing up the stairs, their laughter echoing through the rooms. I smiled, knowing this was why I built, not for wealth, not for contracts, but for futures. Brianna came to stand beside me, resting a hand on my arm. You taught me something, she said softly. Storms don't destroy what is real. They reveal it. Her words stayed with me, a truth stronger than steel, deeper than concrete. Wealth fades, reputations collapse, but truth endures. Betrayal may scar, yet resilience heals. Lies crumble like weak walls in a storm, but character holds firm. Build life on honesty, and every trial becomes foundation for strength. What survives is integrity, the unshakable cornerstone of a meaningful existence.